This is HBR News number 421, Teacher Taken to School on the Gadsden Flag, Late Night Levels Down, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Mike J. No, Mike J is not here yet, but he will be, I think. But we do have Dr. Randermacam and Hannah Wallen here for sure. And yeah, so it should be a really great show. So please stick around. It's gonna be a good time. And we have some really fun but cringy stories for you guys this week. Some interesting takes, probably from me, but I assume also from my co-hosts. We're gonna be talking about the 12-year-old boy who got in trouble with his feminist teacher for having a Gadsden Flag patch on his backpack. The late night hosts with the approved opinions are forming Voltron with a new cringecast and more. So stick around. It's going to be a good time, and be sure to join us afterwards for the patron only show. So I have like a couple of things for this that I've come across, but this one from the Huffington Post, which I haven't done Huffington Post in a very long time. They have this article. It's not new, but it is kind of like a sign of the times. It's sort of like endemic of what is going on in our world today. It is called 7 Damn Good Reasons to Date a Single Mom.
If you put that in if you put that in your Tinder profile, like, I really want a single mom, it would come across a little bit creepy, would it not?
Yeah. Well, yeah. A little bit. Yeah, I think that would be strange. But there is more prescient stuff too that I thought about making into a story that I could talk about either on the Patreon show or like another show. So as you guys know, I'm running a gaming channel. It's also kind of like a nerd channel, so we can do like nerdcasty stuff. We used to do nerdcast here, but in order to sort of keep this content a little bit more focused on what we do, I have created a separate channel called Honey Badger Arcade. Please go subscribe to Honey Badger Arcade. We're doing fun stuff at least a couple times a week. Sometimes I'll upload a video with my thoughts on something. I talked about Alec Holoka. Do you remember Alec Holoka, Hannah?
Yeah.
You remember him, Mike? I think I mentioned him on the show, but I don't know. Alec Holoka was the game developer that committed suicide because he got falsely accused by Zoe Quinn. Or at least he was accused of something and there was no evidence for it, no police reports, no nothing, but his career was destroyed. And he ended up taking his own life. And the reason why I talked about it was because the day he did it was August 31st. So it was 4 years ago, August 31st. And I just want to make sure that people don't forget that a man took his own life as the result of a false allegation. And this is kind of relevant to something that I'm going to be talking about later, which is male suicide. Some of the data is pretty shocking, or you might find it shocking. So that is so in relation to that, because I am interested in the gaming stuff, and there is fun stuff going on at Honey Badger Arcade. For example, Hannah, you didn't know this. Hannah's been behind on stuff because she's been like taking a break, which is completely warranted, and I'm glad that you're back. I have started a campaign on a video game called Neverwinter Nights 2, where it's like based in Dungeons and Dragons, like, you know, the system, and you can build your own custom party. And I have built the Badgers. So I've made an Allison, a character for Allison, a character for Karen, a character for you, and a character for Dr. Randermacam. If they allowed more slots, I would have put, you know, like one for myself in there. But there's only 4 right now. So if something changes, I'll add more. But that's where it stands. And Hannah, you are a wizard in the game. So, and Allison is a ranger.
Kind of fitting.
Yeah, and Allison is a ranger, and she has an animal companion, which is a giant badger. And Mike is the bard, and he's actually pretty useful. He's like,
I've never
not like the bard in the gamers.
No, I mean, yeah.
Well, how are bards actually useful? I'm not sure how D&D.
When bards can sing songs that boost everyone's.
Jacks of all trades. They can fight. They can do magic.
Oh, they can do magic. Okay.
Yeah,
they can do magic.
No, they're jacks of all trades, but they also what makes them stand apart is that they can use their music to sort of boost everyone else's morale, so you can like improve the other characters. But like, yes, he can fight, he can cast spells. He's got a little bit of everything. He dabbles, and Karen is a barbarian that has Rantzerker Rage. So like, these are the characters, and they're great. And so we do that. I also have Lindsay playing Baldur's Gate 3, which is like the newest D&D game, but she plays it by herself, and I just kind of like, you know, add commentary. So there's lots going on there, and because of that,
I miss Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3
haven't.
It's pretty woke, though. I would warn you, it's pretty woke. But you can get the original ones.
I haven't
for
had
cheap.
sufficient free time to actually just sit down and play video games in a long time. And then when I did get back into it, I didn't get back into video games. I got back into something I did before I played a lot of online video games. Which was there's a game called Genesis. It's a MUD, and it's all text. And I've played that a little bit in the last few months, and occasionally people will see me on Twitter post an image above somebody's tweet that says something about, you know, the gibbering female gibberer says, or something along those lines. That's a screenshot from some of the text in that game.
I know about MUDs. I never played one, but I think Lindsay did when she was little. But
I was really into it in the early mid-90s, because the early 90s it cost too much to play. It cost too much to be online.
Yeah, so anyway, we do stuff over there, and because of that, I do occasionally comment on stuff going on in the popular culture industry, games, movies, etc. I've made videos about Barbie. I've made videos about other sort of video gamey stuff, and so I would ask that if you're interested in that, go check out Honey Badger Arcade. And this is relevant. I learned about this today. So apparently, there is a YouTuber named Heel versus Babyface, and he does gaming and cultural stuff. He's good friends with Nerdrotic.com and Eric July, who has been on my show before, and they're sort of in that, you know, gaming culture film space, and they're dealing with the shit that we've been dealing with for the last 10 years. Of course, now they're being affected by it, and they're like, what the hell is all this crazy nonsense? And apparently, Heels versus Babyface, his name is Az, he went on this massive rant because this brand new game that just came out is asking for his pronouns, and he just like is like, why are you doing this? I don't want to deal with your current year, you know, gender ideology, queer theory bullshit, which I think is completely justified. And so we might go through that instead, because I want to see what the pink news, this is pink news, so we know it's cringe, and it's entitled Angry Gamer Bros Can't Handle Choosing Pronouns in Starfield. It also has a picture of Dr. Disrespect, who is another very well-known streamer. Generally, these guys are not political people. They don't talk about the men's issue stuff. They're not involved at all. They're just hobbyist guys that like their hobby, and they feel like their hobby's being invaded because it is. And so, you know, this is relevant to something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Again, talking about male suicide. But anyway, we'll do one of those in the patron show, and hopefully you guys will be able to join us. And if you want to be a part of that, you have to become a Badger by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to participate in all of the goodness. We'll have lots of access to, extra content. There's patron shows. There's movie nights. I've been showing the patrons JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the entire series, every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. in the Discord. So if you want, for example, and people always do movie nights at noon Eastern, and maybe on Sundays as well. There's writers workshops, there's game nights, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So feedthebadger.com to join and become a Badger, and please do that. And if you don't want to wake up one morning and find that our content has been yeeted by the internet, please go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to be a part of that action. So with all that out of the way, I do have, I think, a super chow that I need to read out right at the beginning, and then we'll get into the stories. Hold on. So, wait, I think I read that already. Comic Wannabe gives us $50 and $5. I guess one of them is a support and one of them is just a super chow. And says, my father is seeking help for depression. I forget, is the Mankind Project a positive or negative group for men? This was yesterday after the Fireside Chat. Oh,
that is a good group.
Mankind is the one that Tim Goldich
Mankind
runs.
Initiative. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small island of good people in an ocean of feminists.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference between the Mankind Project and the Good Man Project. I think that's where you're getting it mixed up. The Good Man Project is male feminists. The Mankind Project is
Mankind Initiative.
Yeah.
It's the Mankind Initiative, right? Because I don't know if there's such a thing called the Mankind Project, but I do know of the Mankind Initiative.
Yeah. Agreed. And then Allison says something. I guess she wants me to read it. So Allison says, a shout out to one of the supporters who bought Xenospora 1 and 2. This can be done on a show with Allison, putting it here as a reminder. Thanks to Alex Baribeau, who bought Xenospora 1 and 2. And lastly, a quick shout out to the Rumble gang. If you guys want to join us on Rumble, that is HB Radio on rumble.com. That is hopefully a place that will continue to grow and maybe even one day overtake YouTube after they stop getting government grants and whatnot. So one can hope. That's all I'll say. One can hope. Okay.
All right. That last super chat, there is a thing called the Mankind Project. So we need to know before we answer that question whether he's talking about this or the Mankind Initiative, because the Mankind Project, it looks like it's very organized. There is
also a Mankind
personal
UK,
development organization.
Yeah.
That it says offers a life-changing experiential training and support groups for all kinds of men. So it depends on who organized it and what their goals are.
I would say, just to make a recommendation, because I assume that it doesn't have to be Mankind. If you're not sure, the XY Crew is great. Paul Elam runs it, and Cafe is also have good services for men, depending on what it is that you need. And you might want to, but there aren't a lot. And again, we will get into this later because I do have some info about male depression. So, any final thoughts, Hannah? I feel like I cut you off, and I apologize.
No, I think that's pretty much the best advice I've got too, because I need to get more familiar with this group before I can answer anybody's questions. Is this a good group, or is this, you just have to kind of feel it out. Are they talking about ways that men can process their experiences, their emotions, their pain and suffering in a way that benefits the man, and not just in a way that makes him fit in better with the community? Because that's the important thing. If once they're done helping you, are you in a better place? Not are you better for them? Like it's fine if you're also better for them, but that's basically what I would look at. Are they telling you that they're going to help you be in a better place for yourself? Because if they're not talking about that, if they're talking about making you less toxic, and they're talking about making you less ineffective or more, less in trouble and not more happy, then that's not the group for him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, anyway, I know that comic wannabe Super Chow came yesterday, so I don't know if they're watching this, but if they are, I hope that you, take what we said and use it in a way that is beneficial to your father. So, all right, we're gonna get into the stories now. First, we're gonna be looking at. Oh, is this the first one? No, this ain't the first one. We're talking about this one. Okay. Last week, a 12-year-old student named Hayden Rodriguez was pulled out of class for wearing a Gadsden Flag patch among many other patches on his backpack. In a sit-down meeting with Hayden's mother, I think he's Hispanic, so the J is a H sound. His mother, Eden, a school administrator, explained their reasoning for pulling Hayden out of class, stating, Quote, so the reason they do not want the flag, the reason we do not want the flag displayed, is due to its origins with slavery and the slave trade, end quote. Eden was quick to push back against... Yeah, it is. Eden was quick to push back against these claims, stating, quote, yeah, it has nothing to do with slavery. That's like the Revolutionary War patch that was displayed when they were fighting the British, end quote. After some debate from the school's board of directors, a statement was released, quote, from Vanguard's founding, we have proudly supported our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the ordered liberty that all Americans have enjoyed for almost 250 years. The Vanguard School recognizes the historical significance of the Gadsden Flag and its place in history. This incident is an occasion for us to reaffirm our deep commitment to a classical education in support of these American principles, end quote. The school district itself has released a different statement that seemingly contradicts the video encounter between Eden and the school administrator. Quote, there has been national media attention on our charter school, the Vanguard School, related to a student having the Gadsden flag on his backpack. Unfortunately, this story is incomplete. The patch in question was part of a half a dozen other patches of semi-automatic weapons. The student has removed the semi-automatic patches. As a school district, we will continue to ensure all students and employees can learn and work in a safe and nurturing environment because, one of those patches might come to life and start gunning down the school. The student returned to class without incident after removing the patches of semi-automatic weapons from his backpack. The Vanguard School and Harrison School District 2 worked in collaboration to resolve this matter, end quote.
Nice fact check, guys. That thing you saw in the video, the viral video, that historically illiterate thing that the teacher specifically said about the Gadsden flag, it's not what happened. Trust us. I mean, it did happen, but here, look at this other thing. He also had pictures of guns, and we successfully made him remove the pictures of guns, which is tantamount to him admitting he was wrong and apologizing. Therefore, technically, we were in the right in some way. Ignore the viral part of the story where we were banged to rights wrong. So, too long didn't read. Fact check. Whoop, 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 whoop. Have they gone yet? No, we have not. You're not just being wrong and stupid, by the way. You're being authoritarian. And in more ways than one. The Gadsden flag, in its modern context, represents what?
Freedom.
Liberty. Particularly libertarians, but let's not split hairs. That's what most present day people associate with it. Neither right wing nor left wing nor anything to do with slavery. It's just don't step on Sneck. And we can't have that. Not around here. We are dyed-in-the-wool authoritarians, and we are hereby going to go ahead and step on you. I mean, at least it's consistent in that sense. We don't believe in liberty, so you can't have it. Very American of you. Apparently you're in favor of being under the heel of the British. Well, don't make me come over there again. You know what else is un-American of you? Not allowing pictures of guns. I know you think you've saved your bacon with that fact check, but that's kind of fucked up too. Like Brian said, a picture of a gun is not going to shoot up your school, is it? A picture of a bald eagle is not going to result in a flock of bald eagles being released into your school and snatching children away in their talons to feed to their chicks. It's just there to represent the American value of personal freedom, liberty. And so does the Second Amendment. And yet here you are going, we have proudly supported our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the ordered liberty that all Americans have enjoyed for almost 250 years. Bollocks. Bollocks. You tried to draw attention away from your un-American authoritarianism by pointing to another aspect of your un-American authoritarianism. Not to mention your total ignorance of symbols and what they mean. You think liberty means slavery. You think defense means offense. If someone comes into your school with the peace symbol on their bag, you probably go, how dare you? That's made of the flag semaphore letters N and D, which means no democracy. It means nuclear disarmament. No, it doesn't. You're a threat to our democracy. You're suspended. But I was just supporting world peace. World peace? What do you hate the Ukrainian people or something? Get out! It's like if an Indian kid came into school wearing that symbol, that Hindu symbol that looks suspiciously like a swastika, and they get immediately suspended by similarly moronic teachers. And I have to wonder how many times that's already happened. To the point where Hindus have just had to go, oh, well, we'll just leave it. I guess we can't promote peace anymore. Apparently war is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Wait, that rings a bell. What's that from? Oh, well.
From that book you're not allowed to read in school anymore.
Yeah, I was going to
whatever.
say, that book
We'll
that's
go
not
ahead
in
and
school
ban that
anymore.
too.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and ban anything that alludes to any of this shit we're doing. Now, please open your textbooks to chapter 12, Intermediate Fisting. Don't tell your parents.
Go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, I'll never forget that horrible day when, you know, my friend's backpack gun patch started a shooting and assaulted my other friend's Care Bear backpack patch, and the only thing that saved everybody was my Wonder Woman lunchbox and, you know, bulletproof and shit. But it's just, here we have an admission from the school that they believe that just having patches on somebody's backpack is so influential, it makes it dangerous. That kids don't think for themselves, that if they see something and somebody is supporting it in their class, somebody likes it, and it's special to them, it must be good, and all the kids must latch onto that and take it the worst possible direction and follow that, right? And that's going to be the way things go. And there will be, you know, shootings or whatever, violence, anger, illegal activities, blah, blah, blah. But then they castigate parents for claiming that if you inundate students with toxic, ridiculous lies about biology and sex and gender, and you tell them that kinks are identities and sexual preferences, and they have to mold their whole lives around them, and that gender isn't real, but gender stereotypes determine what sex you are. That won't affect what they believe, and they're not being brainwashed, and they're not being convinced of anything. You know, it's totally dangerous for them to see a picture of a gun, but it's not dangerous at all for them to be inundated with lesson plans designed to decide how they're going to think. Like, you have to pick one way or the other. Either they're ready for this shit or they're not. Like, I have no problem with school saying, well, you can't have pictures of beer on your shirt, you can't have guns on your clothes. You know, that we did that when we were in school. I couldn't wear a t-shirt to school with anything like that on it. You know, I couldn't wear a beer advertisement to school. I couldn't wear a pot leaf to school on my shirt. Those things were anything that was Cheech and Chong related. Nope, can't have that. No Cheech and Chong. And it was acceptable. Like, all right, yeah, we are in a serious environment. We're here to learn. This is what we're doing. You can wear school spirit. You can wear your favorite band as long as the image, you know, doesn't involve advocating violence and stuff like that. And so on. Right now, what's interesting is when I was in school, some of the boys in my class were allowed to be late to school during hunting season because their families depended on deer meat as part of their family groceries, basically, for the winter. They would go hunting with their dads, deer meat, duck meat. They would get geese, you know, and whatever they could get. They get rabbits. And that was what they did. They didn't go shopping at the grocery store for meat. They cleaned and butchered and stored that meat, that preserved and stored that meat. And kids would bring deer jerky to school. I had deer jerky because I didn't, you know, I wasn't picky, and all kinds of different things. And you could even see kids come to school with a gun in their car and go to class all day.
Put it in the locker.
And they would go back out.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. We didn't see very many kids bringing them inside because we didn't have.
In the old days, kids could.
Yeah, in the old days, they might bring it
in the locker and yeah.
Well, hell, you go back far enough, there were kids that had to carry a gun to school because there might be an animal attack if they didn't. They're walking through areas where there would be coyotes and wolves and, you know, bears and shit. But in any case, like we had all that, and we did not have a massive problem with school shootings. Right? We didn't even have the level that actually exists today.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's totally the patch on the backpack that's causing this, and not the bullshit that the education department is pulling on the students. You don't get to learn math, but we're going to confuse the hell out of you about sex, and that's education.
Yeah. I'll say that I don't think this is ignorance on this woman's part. I think that feminists hate libertarianism. They absolutely hate it. Antifa, commies, they all hate libertarianism because to them it's the same as like what she said, slavery, the Civil War, all that. So this isn't like her just being misinformed. Like the Gadsden Flag, if you remember when the George Floyd riots were going on and Antifa was making their own flags, there were variations on the Gadsden flags with like, you know, like their commie fist, like choking out the snake or stuff like that. You know, it would be like, we will tread, it will say on the tagline. It'd be a black and red flag. That's not ignorance. They're telling us what they think. They're telling us that to want to be free is the wrong opinion. Like, they don't want that. You're not allowed to have that. They are authoritarian. It's built in. I've never heard of a libertarian feminist. You know why? Because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. They will force people to do stuff. And so this woman, I don't think I'm going to be charitable. I don't think she's stupid. I think she's evil. I think that she is trying to get her student to feel shame because he wants to be free, which is this meme I'm sharing. You guys can't see it. Let me share my screen with you guys in the chat, in our Discord. Real quick, so you can see what the meme is. This is it in a nutshell, okay? And not necessarily white women. I think it's just women, but like women on the left and the masculine urge to be free. It always comes back to that. A man is thinking for himself. That is not allowed. That's literally all libertarianism is from, like, its base. It's like, I just want to think for myself. I just want to be free to make my own choices. I want to be free to take my own risks. I want to be able to do that. And these women they hate it. They absolutely hate it. And they will force their ideology on you in one way or another. And when they have authority, like they do in a classroom, they will abuse that power at the earliest convenience. So this is not ignorance. She is not stupid. She is doing what she wants to do. It's just fortunate that this boy's parents stood up for her. And the gun patches thing is more evidence of that. She knows damn well gun patches can't hurt anybody. She knows damn well that just because some kid has gun patches on his backpack doesn't mean he's going to go shoot up a school. In fact, if that kid came in with a bunch of pride flags on there, or like girl power patches, she wouldn't say shit. He could have a hammer and sickle, Che Guevara t-shirt, she wouldn't say shit. It's not about the symbolism. It's not about the patches. It's about her ideology. It has to be like the normal. It has to be ubiquitous. You have to feel like you're surrounded by so much feminism, which we are, that if I tell you you're in a feminist, like, you know, world, you're like a fish that I'm trying to explain is swimming in water. You know, like, what do you mean water? I don't see any water, right? That's the world that she wants this boy and every boy to believe they live in. And so, like, that's why this is something that I need to point out, because just like a boy by his nature, a male by his very nature, in his essence, as he exists, is in opposition to feminist ideas. It just as an existing boy. That's why it's built on man hatred. That's why it was never like not shit, okay? Because it's anti-male in its DNA. It's in its foundation. So anyway, I'm glad that they felt the need to apologize. But there is like another. I just learned something about. I didn't get the story, but there was another thing I learned about just today, actually, that came out that sort of related. So I learned that I think it's in California, there was some leaked emails or communique between teachers unions and the teachers about essentially like how they were going to organize queer theory being taught to students, like things like pronouns and essentially like curriculum that is designed to cause students to question their gender and gender identity, which apparently people like parents are really bothered by. They don't want that, like most of them, right? Because they don't want their kids exposed to that. We're talking about really young kids. And what teachers unions have been doing is they've been telling the teachers, like, we're gonna record this stuff, but we want you to use pencil and paper because we don't want it to be traceable. So this is literally, I think this is like the Hillary Clinton like email thing, like applied to the students in schools. And this is this is in public schools in California, but it's probably in other places too. That's just where the leaks came from. I'll get you the sources if you have to know. I'll find them. But it's the unions that are doing it. And I think it was like a couple of teachers that came forward and said this is going on, that kind of like blew the story open, because there were a couple of teachers that were like, well, this isn't cool, right? The parents should know what's going on because it was designed to keep that from parents. So this is what I'm talking about. This is not isolated incident. This is the norm. This is a problem in the education system everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's this example, this story is a charter school. So this is not like a public school. Those are worse. But charter schools, private schools, they're not much better because they all get the same, they're all coming from the same place. Like all of the people who graduate from college to go into teaching, whether they go to a private school, whether they go to a charter school or a public school, they're all getting the same education, and that's coming from the universities, which is where like things are at their most woke, especially in the more Ivy League levels. So this is not something that is going to be easy to escape simply by changing schools. And people have to know about it, and they have to get involved, and they have to act against it. They have to call this shit out. And yeah, I think that Vivek Ramaswamy, and this will be the last thing I'll say about this. Vivek Ramaswamy has run on the platform that he is going to essentially tear down the Department of Education. And he's going to find something else to replace it with. Now, maybe this is all bluster, and maybe he's not going to be able to do it. But I gotta say, that is a start. It is a start at the very least, because there has to be something better. And if it comes down to it, homeschooling might be the only way, or maybe people will start online classes that like actually teach students useful things, and not teach them to go to a surgeon when they're 12 to get their tits cut off or whatever, to get put on hormones, and not know how to do simple math, because that's kind of where things are now. So those are my thoughts on that. Anyone else have anything to add? If not, I have some super chows. I just wanted to say that though. This is a big problem, guys. Like they're literally just going against masculinity itself, whether it's in a child or an adult. So, all right. So I got super chows. Thank you for the super chows. Let me just get this up. And we got one from Anonymous. And Anonymous gives us $5. Thank you, Anonymous. And says, would love to see Mike Randomcam manipulate ChatGPT like I did. Mike, can you screenshot your interaction with ChatGPT? Also, Dr. Randomcam is a better doctor than Dr. Disrespect.
I'm not a real doctor, by the way. Nothing I say is medical advice. I think I have to say that for legal reasons. I've actually never interacted with ChatGPT. I don't know how to. I'm determined to actually be creative in a human way. Well, I might use it for thumbnails. Apparently, it's quite good for thumbnails.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you just feed it like, I want a picture of this in this style, and I'll just do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't know to what degree you're allowed to do that, or even how easy it is.
No idea. No idea. This guy, I know who this is, I think. He sent me an email. He basically manipulated ChatGPT to talk about feminism without... He basically described feminism and then gave it a different name, because if you say feminism to it, it's gonna go to the, you know, what do the feminists have to say about feminism? Oh, it's only the good things, and if you oppose it, you must be one of the bad people, you know. But like if you spell out like this is what it does, this is everything it's done, and you just call it something else, you know, then you'll get like a more like, I don't know, normal answer, I guess. So we might go through it this week on a show and see like what, you know, ChatGPT thinks about feminism, if it's real feminism. Which means you can't say feminism to it, because it's going to you know, because it's programmed by feminists, basically. I mean, people who agree with, you know, the central notion. But anyway, so
you can play the James Lindsay Helen Pluckrose trick on it by, you know, tricking it into saying everything in okay because it's in a feminist context. But that's nothing special about ChatGPT. You can do the same thing with NPC academics. Who've been doing this for 60 fucking years.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're basically artificial intelligence as well. There's nothing humane about their intelligence. It's artificial.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of questionable calling it intelligence at all.
I agree. It's just like it's really just a sophisticated search engine.
It's intelligence. It's intelligence.
Oh, I meant the NPCs. They're kind of programmed as well.
Yeah, they are totally.
I mean, termites are intelligent in their hive mind. Ants are intelligent in their hive mind, but it's a different kind of intelligence.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so I got a super chow from our top G, Meredith G. Woo! And she says, for $5, HBR News 421, the teacher didn't want the flag because it signified that the student was an independent thinker. And funny interviews with the student found his classmates started putting the Gadsden Flag stickers on their locker and patches and bags. Based! I mean, if they're gonna be that way, I mean, but that outcome is exactly what she wanted to avoid. Because if people start thinking for themselves, they'll find that they're much happier than they're doing as they're told. And children? I don't know. So yeah.
See, what teachers don't understand, even today, they never seem to have figured this out, that even if they're the popular teacher, even if they're, you know, they kids like their ideas, the kids like the way they describe things, whatever. When it comes down to the teacher exercising authority over the classroom, the kids are going to be like, well, it's us versus them now. And whatever they want, whatever the teacher wants to impose on the kids, the kids are going to resist it.
Yep. Absolutely. So thank you, Meredith G and Anonymous, for those super chows. I don't have any other super chats or Rumble rants, so shout out to the Rumble gang. We're going to move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. So next we have, I just think this is funny. Strike Force 5, assemble! The biggest names in late night, biggest names in late night, have turned their private group chat into a Spotify podcast, Strike Force 5. That's literally what they called it. All the proceeds will go to support their staff during the writer's strike. Who are they? That's a good question. The hosts of these shows arguably most immediately affected by the strikes: Jimmy Kimmel, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, and Jimmy Fallon. Too bad that fat Australian guy is not on there anymore. I guess his show got canceled a while ago. What's the big deal? They're about to enter the 5th month since the Writers Guild of America went on strike on May the 2nd. Since then, all of the late night shows have gone on hiatus and the staff has been out of work. According to the first episode of the Strike Force 5 podcast, all the proceeds from the show will go to support their staff during the strike. Members of the Screen Actors Guild AFTRA, the Actors Guild, have also been on strike since July. Under the strike agreement, union members are not allowed to promote Hollywood productions they're a part of, the bread and butter of many late-night shows. In the premiere episodes, the hosts explain that when the strike was imminent, the 5 of them spoke regularly over Zoom to figure out ways to support their staff. This show was a result. I'm taking this from NPR, so this is not my opinion on it, but rather NPR's, which is generally in support. So yeah, Jim Jeffries, that's the guy I was thinking of. So anyway, get ready for all new levels of cringe. I didn't even notice that the shows were off the air. I mean, who would have?
Yeah, I haven't watched those in ages.
Yeah,
any of them.
Yeah, I know. But it's a big announcement. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm not going to side with anyone in this writer's strike thing, because as much as I despise these grinning goofballs who get paid millions for reading bullshit from a teleprompter, what makes them, I guess, so interminable is the bullshit itself, and the people who put all the bullshit into the teleprompter in the first place. Like, Orange Man bad, please clap. Everyone but us is racist, please cheer. Get your vaccine, please dance like a monkey on hot coals. Are you telling me this shit wasn't written by AI? Because it fucking sounds like it. So I suppose these late night hosts are just buying some time before AI gets so good that it overtakes these apparent humans' ability to churn out Democrat propaganda, loosely disguised as jokes. Good. Fuck these flimsy excuses for writers. Go home and be a family man. Having said that, is it not a hell of a kick in the teeth that while their writing staff are all striking for more money, these assholes are doing this Spotify stream thing for the sake of paying their staff?
Yeah.
Their other stuff. Apparently that's why they're doing this. At least that's why they say they're doing this. Either way, it's like they're going, sorry, writers, we just can't find any avenues of enterprise that could possibly raise the money you're looking for. Now let's go ahead and find an avenue of enterprise that can raise some extra money. Like, why don't you use those extra funds to pay the writers without whom you clearly cannot function? Who are you paying? The camera crew you're not using? The floor managers you're not using? The fucking receptionists you're not using while you broadcast alone from the smallest room in your mansion?
Yeah.
Instead of paying people for doing nothing, why don't you pay the people who want more money for what they do? Or do you not give a shit about unions? You're not that kind of leftist. Interesting. Again, the writers in question are also a bunch of hacks who can go fuck themselves. I don't mean writers in general. I mean the kind of writers hired by Hollywood specifically to write leftist propaganda. If you simply hired people who just write funny jokes from a non-ideological perspective, not only would your content be far more bearable, but you wouldn't get so many entitled unionists who are inevitably going to strike for more money. That's what leftists do. They demand gibs. That's what they write jokes about, and it's why you hired them. It's something of a vicious circle, or more like a downward spiral. And to be honest, it's the most entertaining thing you pricks have ever done. It's entitled leftist scumbags versus other entitled leftist scumbags in a cold war of attrition that has the rest of us wondering why any of you ever had jobs. And we're all just sitting back with no skin in the game, with no problems, other than, potentially running out of popcorn. I wonder when the people who supply the popcorn are going to go on strike. That would be a real issue, because people actually like popcorn.
That would be cataclysmic. I have a couple of things real brief to say about. I mean, other than I never watch these people anyway. But first of all, have you ever seen the Venture Brothers? When they would show in the Venture Brothers cartoon, there were some scenes that involved the supposed Council of the Guild of Calamitous Intent. And it was all these like silhouettes. They were the silhouettes of people behind screens. You couldn't see their faces, and you thought that they were like communicating from like far distant parts, corners of the world. But they were all like upstairs, like they were basically like next to each other in in the same building. I think that these guys, this gives me the feeling that like they're trying to put a different sort of image for each one. Like, oh, I'm in my, like what is this? Fallon is he in his garage? Like, oh, I'm just like you guys. Like, hello, fellow normal middle class people. I'm just like you. And Seth Meyers looks like he's in an attic. And Colbert is like in his, I don't know, his office or something, like whatever, his study. But I think they're probably all in the same building. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this to me is that I remember when late night TV was like Johnny Carson, David Letterman, and they were competitors. Like they were on different networks, and they didn't necessarily rag on each other, but they knew they were competing for the eyeballs on screens, right? And so because of that, you had this sense that there was going to be higher quality content. Like Johnny Carson would try to get, make his opening bits funnier, have better guests that people were interested in. He used to get on very interesting guests sometimes. They weren't always like, so-and-so's movie's coming out, let me bring out the star. And oh, by the way, that movie that person is going to be in is also being produced by the same company that produces this fucking network. So it's literally just an ad for the thing that they want you to, it wasn't that, right? Like, I remember that talk shows were something worth watching, these late night things, and they were competing with each other. And like Arsenio Hall got involved, and he was on a different channel, right? But these guys, they're all supposedly on different stations, but they're all on the same page. So like it just tells you like this is not a market of competing voices. Obviously, because they all agree on everything and they're all giving you the same perspectives. I mean, they all probably are owned by Pfizer or something. So that was the first thing I wanted to say, is that like obviously this just sort of shows that they're not competing with each other. The other thing is about AI. So like Dave Cullen, hello Dave, if you're watching. Love you, man. Dave Cullen, who used to have a YouTube channel called Computing Forever, but now his Computing Forever is on like BitChute or something because YouTube is mean to his channel. Although he does have another channel called The Dave Cullen Show where he talks about culture. He made a video recently where he had AI write a script for a TV show that everyone hated called Secret Invasion. It was on Disney Plus. Apparently terrible. I don't know. I don't watch Disney Plus anything. And he had an AI, or he looked at a script written by AI, and it was better than the show. So I think, that what these guys have been getting in terms of material is not written by AI, because if it was, it might be funnier. So there's that as well. That was the other thing I wanted to add. But anyway, good luck. They are completely in over their heads. The internet and people producing their own content is so much better than whatever the machine is putting out, and I think we're all better off for it. All right, any other thoughts on this before I move on? This is kind of a little story, but I had to have a comment on it.
I think you guys pretty much covered all the bases on the issue itself. The one thing that I will point out is these guys their shows are not the only thing that's being affected right, by the writer's strike. There's all these other things going on. There's plenty of actresses out there that are not busy because their show's not being filmed either, right? There's all kinds of stuff not getting done.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who actually thought about the breadwinners of various families on their crews, the people who actually gave a rat's ass that the camera crew might need to get paid even if the writers don't feel like working, those are all men. Yep. I don't see a woman's name in this group, not one.
Nope.
And I don't see any other women's group out there working to make sure that their makeup artists and their wardrobe people and the security staff and all those guys are getting paid. Nope, it's just 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like any of these guys necessarily in particular. I don't like their politics. I don't like their way that they jab at people. But even the worst of guys, even the most dipshitty, assholiest, fucknuts of guys, will do something like this because they feel responsible to take care of the people that work for them. All I've heard actresses do is bitch.
Yeah. Yep. And
that's all I got to say about it. Everything else I would have said, you guys have already said, so.
Yeah, it's true.
I just wanted to point that out.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's true. And let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Are you going to be watching this? It's just going to be like, the 5 NPC heads saying Orange Man bad. That's what I'm predicting. Get the jab, Orange Man bad. So yeah, I'm sure that will be extremely fulfilling for people. All right, so next story. I don't think there's any other super chats or anything. So I wanted to talk about this one because I think it's just kind of an interesting case. Now it's still, I don't know if it's going to result in Summers of Love now that the summer is ending, but it is entirely possible. So in Westerville, Ohio, a pregnant woman named Takia Young was fatally shot by a police officer during a confrontation in a grocery store parking lot. So there are, I don't know if you guys have seen this going around, but in, several cities across the country, there are what you could call like mob shoplifting, organized sort of attacks, like, where a Target or a Walmart or Walgreens or whatever gets mobbed by a bunch of people and they take as much shit as they can and they flee the scene. And so it gets so many that, like, security can't really keep up, and also the police in most of these cities are defunded, they're hogtied, they're not really able to do their job in most cases, or at least they make it very hard for them to do it. And in one such case, this woman had she was pregnant and she was shoplifting a bunch of alcohol. Okay,
definitely the thing you need the most.
Yeah, definitely the thing. Alcohol. Yeah, well, that's the thing that I think is interesting about this. So she was stealing a bunch of booze and she was pregnant, and she was confronted by police. They asked, they told her to stand down. She drove the car into them. There is body cam footage. I'm not going to show it because it's probably, not appropriate for YouTube. The situation, she was accused of theft. No, she was stealing. She wasn't accused. The situation escalated when Young moved her car, prompting an officer to fire a single shot through her windshield. Young and her unborn baby tragically lost their lives. The officer who fired the shot remains on administrative leave, and there are calls for accountability and transparency in the investigation. Community members have held vigils and protests demanding justice for Young. The incident has stirred controversy and legal proceedings are likely to follow. It is being investigated. So here's the thing I wanted to say about this. Obviously, let's look at everything that happened. The woman was stealing with a bunch of other people. She was fleeing the scene. Police approached her. She did not comply. She was trying to drive off. She was trying to run one of these cops down. They shot at her, and she died. And what's really interesting about this, to me, this is the Washington Post, okay? When she was killed by the cop, they described it as a woman and her unborn baby being killed. And I've talked about
now
this.
It's a baby.
Yeah, now it's a baby. Okay, so
baby.
I've talked about this before. I've talked about the problem with the pro-choice argument is that whether or not the fetus is a baby, is a life, is a human being, is completely dependent on whether the mother considers it to be such, or in the case of this, the media. Like, basically, the assumption is it's a baby, right? It's not a clump of cells anymore. So I've already said that if you kill a pregnant woman, it's considered a double murder or a double homicide, right? Like that's in the law. So I had to point out that, obviously there's other problems. Like, why was she doing this while she was pregnant? Why was she putting herself and her baby at risk? Why was she stealing alcohol? Like there's a number of other things. But of course, none of that's going to be examined. the fact that, you know, a baby was killed and we're now saying it's a baby. And I think this is important because this is the argument that pro-choice feminists, pro-abortion feminists will use so that men cannot be a part of the conversation at all. It is so that fathers have no, you know, they have no choices in the matter. It's all contingent on the mother. So it's not only the pro-choice abortion discussion is not only excluding men altogether, no uterus, no opinion, right? But on top of that, the woman carrying the child gets to decide not just whether or not she has an abortion, but whether or not the child is a child. And that is like playing God. So it's a postmodern view of life. It comes from what do you think it is? Oh, I think it's a baby. Okay, then it's a baby. What do you think it is? Oh, I think it's a clump of cells. Okay, then it's a parasite. So I mean, this conversation is all screwed up. We can't actually have an honest conversation about it because the terms are all up in the air. So anyway, that's the main. So, you know, tragic. I'm sorry this happened. I'm not like, I think this is shitty, but you know, and they're gonna try to make this into a thing. They're gonna try and make this into an excuse to riot or protest or fund another, you know, some organization. The feminists are gonna come out. The Black Lives Matter people are gonna come out. They're
gonna make it about her being a woman too.
Yeah, they're gonna totally make it about her being a woman. Absolutely.
And
like, oh, she wasn't dangerous. She was a woman. She was male
pregnant.
And female violence. Like, she was trying to run him over with a car, but that's not violent, right?
Yeah, they're saying she's unarmed while she's driving a fucking car.
Yeah, no, you're not. If you have a car, you're not unarmed. Mm-hmm. You're not unarmed. And I've been like, this is out of the Columbus area. This is not out of the Dayton area. But I mean, I've driven all over Ohio. As a photographer working at weddings and sports photography and shit. And I have been deliberately run into in road rage accidents in Ohio by other people with their vehicles. And it's usually pretty stupid because I drive big ass vans. I do not drive small vehicles. I don't like small vehicles. And this is one of the reasons. So I've had people bounce their SUV off of me on purpose. Thinking they were going to do something to my ancient, steel and aluminum van and find themselves in a ditch. And I've had people do significant damage to vehicles that I've been driving because they have hit me on purpose. And like a lot of times you're moving when that happens. By the time you get police involved, it's too late. If you don't have a license number, you're fucked. So this isn't something that's not. You look at Ohio where it's happening. Mm-hmm. It's not unusual to look at what was going on there and say, yes, she was intentionally trying to hurt this person. This wasn't her trying to get away. This was a deliberate act to do damage to the officer. And
she thought that because she's pregnant, nobody would do anything to her. I'm sure that was part of her logic too.
Because she was pregnant, she'd get away with it.
Did she even make it clear to the police that she was pregnant?
I think that she was visibly pregnant, but I mean,
okay.
Yeah. Which is, that's another thing. Like, you hear about a pregnant woman in Ohio making the news in regard to the use of a particular substance. I'm actually kind of surprised it wasn't meth.
Yeah.
Well, it was just alcohol, which fetal alcohol syndrome is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But big city in Ohio, well, big for Ohio, like and not quite the biggest, obviously, because we do have Cleveland, but Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Toledo, not so sure about Lancaster, but definitely Cincinnati. Massive meth problems, massive opiate addiction problems, in particular heroin, not so much pain medications, because it's a lot easier to get heroin than it is to get pain pills.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that shit's everywhere. And it's so common
she had to get
in
that
Ohio.
Crown Royal. She had to get that Jack Daniels or whatever.
It's so common in Ohio for people to get themselves fucked up on substances that we have waiters and waitresses in restaurants training in the use of, I think it's called Narcan, that they use to save somebody that's had an overdose, or and it's not necessarily for the person that you find having an overdose. because fentanyl poisoning is a massive problem here too.
Yeah.
And if you check on somebody and you touch them and they've got that much fentanyl on them in their system, it's on their clothes, anything like that, you can get poisoned. And we've had officers here almost die from that. So when they see a pregnant woman coming out of a liquor store who has ripped off a bunch of alcohol and is behaving erratically and is violent, because trying to run somebody over with your car is an act of violence. It is violent. Being a pregnant woman doesn't make it any less violent. You're trying to hit somebody with 2,000 pounds of metal and glass and trying to crush their bones, trying to do internal damage, trying to rupture their organs, right? That's violent. Nobody should be questioning he had to defend himself. And when people in our communities get mad because we get charged with a crime for defending ourselves against violent criminals and get hit with, oh, you were trying to get away from that person that was beating you into the pavement, disorderly conduct, that, why would the cops think otherwise? If we're going to tell them, this woman's trying to hit you with your car, but you shouldn't have shot her, that's violent. Like, what are they supposed to think? Well, this community considers it violent to fight back against an assailant. Okay, yeah. So if somebody fights back against an assailant, we should charge them with a crime because that's what the community wants.
You know what else?
People really ought to think twice before they go after this officer.
Yeah,
that's what they're communicating to the cops.
Yep.
Don't let us defend ourselves if we are victims of a crime.
I also like how confidently the Washington Post says that this is actually a pregnant woman that was killed. You don't know that! You didn't ask for her pronouns. Was there a biologist? Did you guys call one in, a gynecologist, to check? We don't know that. Oh, man, so problematic. J.K. Rowling
called. A biologist.
She wants her opinions
Call an elementary
back.
School teacher.
Yeah, call an elementary school teacher, right? Get on TikTok.
Biologists don't know.
Ask a TikToker. Anyway, Mike,
so,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to dumb this down for the masses, even those of you who aren't on meth and fentanyl, because I have seen this video. You should all watch it too for context. It's all over the place, and they cut the footage before the gunshot, obviously, but they made the mistake of showing everything before that. So, time for some general advice, some much needed life hacks, if you will. Here are some pro tips of ascending importance that will help you hold on to your life. Tip 1, if a police officer tells you to get out of the car, get out of the car. Tip 2, if multiple police officers yell at you to get out of the car, you really need to get out of the car. Tip 3, if multiple police officers tell you to get out of the car like a dozen times, you absolutely need to get out of the car. Tip number 4, and this is a big one. If there is a police officer right in front of your car, leaning on its hood and pointing a gun at you while insisting that you get out of the car. I mean, if I were you, I'd seriously think about getting out of the car. At that point, it is most definitely more dangerous to stay in the car than it is to get out of it. Especially if you're innocent, like the woman in question protested that she absolutely was. There's not a lot they can do if you're innocent of the crime of, in this case, shoplifting, because there will be no evidence of stolen wares in the vicinity of your car. What you should not do, pro tip number 5, is start up the car and attempt to drive it through the police officer. This is highly unlikely to work unless the police officer is a hologram or your car is some kind of ghost car. At that point, you're attempting to run someone over with a ton of metal. And whether or not you're guilty of shoplifting, you are now guilty of another crime, a somewhat more serious one. And there's no doubt whatsoever about your guilt of that crime. You're doing it in front of several body cameras, not to mention many witnesses. In doing so, you give the distinct impression that you are not innocent of the initial accusation. If you're that recklessly determined to get away from the police, you're acting like someone who may have committed even more crimes, of which there is evidence that you really don't want revealed. In short, if you are innocent, act like you're innocent. It's not difficult. And finally, pro tip number 6, If you are pregnant and you have any concern at all for the well-being of your unborn quote-unquote child, who definitely is innocent, by the way, then tips 1 to 5 count at least double for you, and you should be complying with the police's every request, even if you are guilty of everything they're accusing you and more. If complying with the police means you go to prison, you need to go ahead and go to prison, because a child with an incarcerated mother is better than a child with no mother. Probably. This woman seems to be a colossal idiot who's nowhere near responsible enough to be raising 3 children, but all she needed to do was snap out of it and stop listening to the race-baiting shitehawks in the media who told her she should be above the law. I have it on good authority that no one is above the law. And though it's clearly not the case when it comes to uniparty presidents and their crime families, it clearly is the case when it comes to random thots who think they can steal shit in broad daylight and get away with it, even if they are part of a protected demographic. I know you race Marxists would like to get every state to the point where protected demographics can indeed steal what they like, and the only people who get arrested are the people who try to stop them. But unfortunately for you, Ohio is not California, and hopefully it never will be. This is the kind of news story that the legacy media will spin forever in an attempt to turn Ohio into California. But sorry, it's not all California. As a matter of fact, it's all Ohio. Always has been.
Yeah, it's Ohio is not going to turn into California, but we do have our problems, and you know, like, and I'm going to say this is a politician that I have historically supported, so I'm including myself in this. We elected as our governor, and I voted for him because I didn't like the alternative. But we elected as our governor a career politician who spent most of his career in law enforcement. Right, Governor DeWine is a cop first, I guess I would say. He started out in law enforcement. He's been attorney general at the state level. He's been attorney general at the local level. God, I can't think what it's called. It's the lead prosecuting attorney for a county. I think the county prosecutor is all it's called. But he's been county prosecutor. He's been an auditor. His role and his outlook is very conservative, very old school tradcon, not neo tradcon. His wife is not a bonbon eating, sit around the house and do nothing, stay at home. She did really great things, and I really have a lot of respect for her, and I still have a lot of respect for him. I may not agree with him on a lot of political authoritarian issues, but I don't think we'll turn into California as long as we keep voting that way. The big problem that we have is authoritarians think that they can stop illicit drug use by pounding on the drug users with a giant fist and going after people who have medical problems instead of people who are buying heroin on the street. So we're going to have other problems, and this will continue because of that. And in particular, we do have Ohio's pretty gynocentric. Like this is a state where you get raised here, you hear throughout your childhood, ladies first, and never get into a fight with a girl because you can't win. Either you beat up a girl or you got beat up by a girl. And that, like, there's not a household with a boy in it that did not hear that growing up in this state. So we will see more and more of women engaging in criminal violence and expecting to get away with it because they are girls.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me. The biggest surprise I had out of this was that the only substance in the story was alcohol.
Well, I'll say somebody in the chat. So a couple things. Somebody in the chat asked if we know whether or not she was stealing alcohol to use or to sell. I mean, I don't think that's an important detail because the fact is a pregnant woman still broke the law. and put herself at risk. I don't know whether she was going to sell it or not. It doesn't matter. Basically, step one, stealing, illegal. You're going to get police attention if they actually bother to do their job. Secondly, that you're pregnant, you're obviously not thinking this through. Or you're just assuming, like we've been saying, that because you are a woman and because you are pregnant, that you have some kind of immunity and they're going to just get out of your way and you feel entitled to steal shit. So I don't care if she was going to sell it or not. That kind of is a moot point now. The baby died either way. It was either going to be alcohol poisoning or lead poisoning, and it was lead poisoning. So there you go. I'm sorry. That sucks. But she was the stupid one. I don't think it matters what her intentions were. But yeah, I mean, because the thing is, I think that what this boils down to is we have so little regard for human life. And I think this is like what people like Margaret Sanger did on purpose, because if you legalize abortion, you have to start from the premise that the baby in you is not a human being and it does not deserve to live because it inconveniences you. And the overwhelming majority of women who get abortions, like over 80%, maybe 85%, get them not because of some defect, not because of some health reasons, not because they're in danger of, like, you know, being like of dying or whatever. It's because it's inconvenient. I just don't want one right now. I want to be a thought. I want to go around. I want to get knocked up by people. I'm not responsible, and I don't care about consequences. And it's not a large leap from being that careless about your body and about what you might create and treating human life itself as disposable, because you're already doing it from when it is the most vulnerable. I mean, I'm not making a scientific argument. I'm making a moral one, because that is what this is. And so why wouldn't it be the case if we live in this time where especially black women are getting like crazy numbers of abortions? Why would they give a shit about the baby inside of them? Why would they? Like, they can in their mind, they're just, I'll just make another one. Like, whatever, right? That this is like how little we value human life. This is where we are. That, like, the most vulnerable among us, the unborn, are just tossed aside. And it's women doing it. I think that in general, you might find, I mean, I'm sure that there are men that would try to coerce women into getting abortions because they don't want to raise, kids because they made a mistake, they fucked up. But, like, it's not, it's mostly women doing it, and men are not really allowed to have a say in the conversation anyway. So you couldn't even make the case that men are involved. It has nothing to do with men. It's all women, and this is where we are. This is like because we have zero value for human life, and so much so that women will not only throw away the lives of their unborn babies, but they'll throw away their own lives so they can get their hands on some booze. Whether they're going to sell it or drink it, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't have been breaking the law, asshole. So
and then there's another aspect of this that people don't think about, like, and the phrase knocked up is what really makes it hit home. When we talk about pregnancy, when we talk about conception, we always talk about it like it's something men do and women experience. And yet, when you think about it, the power of no is more in women's court than men's court. Right? We have the full protection of law behind our no. If you don't respect our no, and we enforce it using the law, using the cops, you go to jail for a very long time. That's very, very big power, right? Men do not have the same thing. Women have the power of no. Women have the power of it's respected when we're picky. If we say we don't want to be with somebody because maybe that guy's not very stable, maybe that guy's not a very good guy, he's not going to be a very good partner, he might not be a very good father to any children we might have, he's an asshole, he's ugly, he's not rich enough, whatever, he's too short, too tall, whatever. There is not a reason we can give that when we don't want to be with a guy that we get shamed for saying no, ever. Men don't have that. They get shamed for saying no because a woman's unattractive. They get shamed for saying no because she's fat. They get shamed for saying no because she might have an STI because she's a hoe, right? They get shamed for saying no because she's not going to be a good mother to their children. They get shamed for saying no because she wants to be a stay-at-home mom and they want a partner that will be an equal contributor to the household income. Or the reverse. They want a stay-at-home mom and she wants to have a career and put that before her family. And either way, a man should have a choice. A man should have that boundary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they get shamed for that. So that's before we even talk about birth control. A woman is in control of who she lets in, who gets access to the uterus, who gets access to the eggs. She decides that. That's decision number one.
Yeah.
And then she has a shitload of types of birth control, right? And you don't have to just use one. She can say, I won't consent if you don't use a condom. And she can add birth control of her own on top of that. So when we say women get knocked up, that's bullshit. Women conceive a child with a sex partner. And it is primarily her decision. A guy can't decide that he's going to become a father and just make it happen without a woman's consent. A woman can decide she's going to become a mother, and she can make it happen without a man's consent. And he may not have any legal recourse. So it's bullshit when we sit around and say women get knocked up. Women do not get knocked up. Women conceive children.
Yes, they do.
Women conceive children, and then they decide whether those children get to live or die. And then they decide how much care those children are going to get. They decide whether the father's going to be in the child's life or not. And it is a hell of a fight for the father if he wants to be in a child's life and the mother doesn't want him there. So all of this, women are responsible. Women are 100% responsible for that situation. Women are 100% responsible for society not valuing the life of the baby. And women are 100% responsible for other women using their children as shields in crimes like this. And women have no excuse to whine about this situation. Because en masse, women have told the state that our children don't matter until after they're born, and then they become a drain on the state until after they're adults, and maybe even after they're adults. So why should this cop care that this woman is pregnant at all?
Well, he was trying to protect himself.
Right. At best, we should be looking at, here's a man who is just doing his job. He is society's hired mercenary to protect the local businesses against thieves. And he was doing that. And one tried to kill him, and he had to shoot her. He had to see a person die because of his actions. And he's going to be traumatized for life by that.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he has to live with the fact that he killed a pregnant woman. Which, again, going back to what was my original point, killing a pregnant woman is probably a lot harder to deal with than killing a regular woman. Which is also probably a lot harder to deal with than killing a man. So.
Yep.
All right. I do a couple more things. Confused Gynecologist is in the chat and says, at Badger Livestreams, Brian, examination done, gender is undetermined. So, definitely a confused gynecologist. All right. And I did get a super chow from Richard Bier. Oh, that's the wrong one. It's this one. I'm sorry.
And his name is John C.
And Richard gives us $5 and says, don't forget that the 22-year-old female had a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. Barring abortions, the first was delivered at age 15 for the mother. So I just want to add too, like, whether or not she was stealing the alcohol to drink it. I mean, I guess, like, if we assume that that was what the purpose is, it would be an unfair, an unfair statement about her character because we don't know. But we do know that she was breaking the law while pregnant, refused to comply with police, and tried to run somebody over while leaving her 2 kids at home, knowing that she was pregnant. So that maybe that says something about her character, and maybe it's not that much of a stretch to think, Well, would she drink a beer while pregnant? I mean, is that really
it could
is
be
that
worse.
really a huge leap after everything else she's done?
Could be worse. She was in a liquor store, so
Mhm.
she didn't have her kids with her. But when I worked at the pharmacy, there were women that would come in and use their children to conceal their shoplifting, and the children were trained to participate in this.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, that's child abuse. You are teaching your children to break the law. And so later in life, they're going to do that, and they're going to suffer the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she'd done that too. I mean, like, you got somebody that's shoplifting, they don't have any morals, and most of the time, in my experience, people don't steal food. They
Mm-hmm.
steal alcohol, they steal makeup, they steal things that they can resell, expensive things like Rogaine and stuff like that. But you don't usually see a lot of them stealing a box of breakfast cereal or, soup. So, like,
yeah.
the
No,
whole
no.
thing, people...
They're not Aladdins.
people are
They're
probably
not.
shoplifting
Yeah, they're
because
really
they're
hungry. They're just trying to get a
No,
loaf
it's-
of bread. No.
Yeah, no.
Maybe she was stealing the alcohol to feed her children.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we got to
So
move
there you
on.
go.
That's okay. Thank you, Hannah, for that. Thank you for the super chows, and we're gonna move on to. So this isn't really a story. It's just something I wanted to talk about because I've been seeing it. So if you haven't noticed, people on the internet are now talking about like male issues. Like they're actually talking about it in the mainstream. They're talking about depression.
Yeah.
They're talking about suicide. And I think, at least from when it comes to the mainstream, they have to, because it's becoming an issue they can no longer ignore. And our discussions, the stuff that we talk about on this show, and I'm not saying it's from us, but I'm saying that this kind of content is getting out into the mainstream, is getting out into social media, it's getting out into the world, and the feminists and the leftists can't ignore it anymore. Because it's getting to that point. And one of the things that I saw today on a show was the rates of male suicide. And I talked about, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, just like, I don't know, it was last week, the week before, we talked about Shoe on Head's video. I talked to Elizabeth Jack yesterday. She said, I think it's so great that Shoe on Head made this video, but she had nothing useful in the video. And that's, I will stand by that. Okay. Shoe on Head's video amounts to virtue signaling. Oh, poor men, why don't we care about them? But I have nothing to offer. Here are some feminist channels you should watch that care about men. Meanwhile, it's like Sean and Jen. Bullshit. No. The whole apparatus of mental health is not aimed at men's health. It is specifically demonizing men, it blames men, and it puts them in a position where, of course, they're going to be suicidal, where there's only groups like the XY Crew, like is it not Mankind? The Tim Goldish's group, if you like playing bongos in the woods, whatever. Just men's groups that actually want to help men while allowing them to be free, because this is important. This goes back to the Gadsden Flag story, right? It's just not the way we do things in our mainstream. The whole psychological institution is anti-male. It's built in, and something has to change. And I thought I would give you guys some of the data that those sort of, I guess you could say, the recent data, and we'll talk about why. Okay, so first of all, suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the United States. Okay, this chart shows so I want to show you what the deaths are, and I think this is an important additional factor. Overall, male suicide is far higher than female suicide, but what's really interesting is white men are the highest. I think something like 75% of all suicides are white men. And that is 4 times higher than women and 9 times higher than minorities. So it blows them out of the water. Now, you have to wonder, why are white men so much more likely to commit suicide? I thought they had privilege. I thought that you had white privilege and you had male privilege. But of course, this is what I'm saying. No one's actually going to address this. In fact, all we do in our media is continue to blame men, and especially white men, and especially straight white men, right? So, suicide deaths in the United, this is 2021, 2022, so I don't think the newest data is out yet. But you can see, you know, that, and of course, people will say women attempt more, but generally when women do it, it's a cry for help, and so people will come and help them. They know, and they're gonna get it. Like, women are gonna get, they have services out the wazoo. Men get nothing. Okay, nobody helps them. Like there are probably dudes that you know in your circles, and this goes back to Alec Haloka, who had no help because he was surrounded by feminists in his circle, people who hated men and thought men never needed anything. And when Zoe Quinn accused him of sexual impropriety or whatever it was, I can't remember because it was 4 years ago, he had no recourse. And even his sister, after he died, when she made her post about it, she was like, I believe survivors. Like, that is like taking a shit on his grave. And you know that it wasn't reported to police, and you know there was no evidence, and yet you still, because this is how powerful the narrative is. This is how overwhelming it is. And I mean, I know that, like, sometimes people don't want me to talk about the race, bring in the race thing, but you can't ignore it. It's white men. And it's mostly white men because white men are the villains. As an example, here's an article from Salon. War on Women. The link between white supremacy, men's rights, and anti-abortion politics. None of these things are connected, but Salon will connect them. Why? Because all of those groups, white people, not white supremacy, whiteness, which the Smithsonian has written about, men's rights, and anti-abortion, I guess, they're all in black categories. That's why they're calling it anti-abortion politics instead of just like pro-life or something else. Maybe that men should have an opinion at all, you know? How much of this can you bombard people? And check this out. This is Google Trends. This is used to measure how often people search for stuff, the interest, okay? So you have these charts. There's the green, the yellow, the red, and the blue, okay? This is looking up suicide. Like how often do people look up suicide based on demographics? White men suicide in blue, white male suicide in red. So you have two different charts. Look where that is. Blue and red down here at the bottom. Look at that. Almost no interest. In yellow, LGBTQ suicide. The LGBT make up like 5% of the population, maybe. And that's much higher. But look at women. It's green. It's through the roof. It's way higher than everybody else. Look at that. That's the average. 57. LGBT 8. Men 2. I mean, like, you could just combine them, I guess, and make 4. That would still be nothing. So no one is looking into this. No one even thinks about looking into this. Okay? Then you have, like, the way that men are treated in the media. Body positivity, you know, this thing that everybody's talking about, it's not for men. It's not for men. And I got evidence for that, but we know it. We know it's true. Here's an article from AFRU.com. Body positivity is for women, not lazy white guys with dad bods. So men no sympathy, no matter what. It's not just absent. It's like there's outright hostility. Here's one more article I'll show you, just so to drive this home. And then you'll ask yourself, well, why are men killing themselves at such high rates? Why are white men in particular committing so much suicide? The Problem of Surplus White Men by John Pfeffer. The dispossessed white men have haunted Western politics for generations. The answer isn't to jettison identity politics, it's to create truly meaningful new opportunities. There is too many white men. White men are the problem. Why wouldn't a man just remove himself from the equation if he feels like he is a burden on society? And Allison has talked about this. If men feel like they're a burden, men in general, okay, then they will find the easiest way out. And when men commit suicide, they perfect it. So I just wanted to talk about that because this Shoe-on-Head's video really got under my skin, and no one seemed to understand why. They thought I was attacking her. I wasn't attacking her, but I think that she's kind of ignorant. And this is, like, the fact that she wouldn't even say, oh, you know what? There are these people I used to know called the Honey Badgers. They've been talking about men's issues for 10 years. You should check them out. No mention. Here's Sean and Jen, male feminists who blames men for their problems. Here's 3 other guys, male feminists who all blame men for their problems. Great! That's not going to cause more suicides. Thanks. This is why I got upset. Because this is not useful. Okay?
It's not just not useful.
Yeah,
if you take somebody who is in a situation where, so let's start with the thing that people think is the biggest cause of suicide, which it's not. But chemical imbalance, depression caused by chemical imbalance. So you got a serotonin imbalance, right? And they put you on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and instead of alleviating your depression and helping to get rid of the suicidal ideation, they just take away your anxiety around the potential consequences. Is this going to hurt? Am I going to go to hell? Anything that you might believe about death and life after death and all that stuff. So now you're less worried about, maybe I shouldn't do this. And you become more likely and you commit suicide. That's not self-inflicted, even though the act of suicide is considered self-inflicted. Those other conditions are not. And you cannot take the suicide by itself, the act of killing yourself, out of those conditions, out of that context, and say, well, this person could have avoided doing this. The fact that they did it is a sign that something was so very wrong that they couldn't avoid doing it. And it's not the same as when, and a lot of women will not understand this, because women will do things like take a bottle of pills and get into the bathtub and cut their wrists when they know somebody's going to come home and rescue them, right? They'll do it when they know they're going to be found before they die. Or like in the case of one of my friends, they'll do it and then they'll call somebody to come over and help them. Whereas, I lost another friend to suicide. The friend that called me got mad when I came over and helped her. She was really, but she survived, right? The friend that didn't call for anybody was schizophrenic, and his parents had taken him off of his schizophrenia medicines. They didn't believe in that kind of thing, and so they lost their son.
Yeah.
And he didn't call for help. He wanted an escape. He didn't tell anybody he was going to do ahead of time. He didn't give anybody any clues. And when I was thinking about it, when I was serious about it, I didn't give anybody any clues either. I didn't tell anybody what I was going to do. And the only thing that stopped me was morality, actually. It wasn't psychological help. It wasn't medication. It wasn't any of that. Right. So it's not just the context of, it's a decision. You decide you're going to do this or you decide you're not. It is the context of what's going on in the person's life. And I just had a conversation with a woman about this on Twitter, and she blocked me. I pointed out, she said, these problems, men's issues are self-inflicted.
Right. They're men's fault, of course.
Right. She lumped in together a set of men's issues. She responded to the graphic about male privilege that shows four things: suicide, workplace fatalities, homicide victims, and homeless people. And she says suicide, quote, victims, end quote, killed themselves. Nobody else is to blame. And while most homicide victims are male, so are most murderers. The homeless and workplace issues are because women tend to be more risk averse than men. Men and women have different pluses and minuses. We need both. And I said, dismissing a set of issues because men are the ones experiencing them is pathetic. It shows that you haven't grown up yet and possibly never will. Well, she claims she's not dismissing them. She's like, I'm just pointing out some injuries are self-inflicted. Well, she had lumped in suicide, homicide, homelessness, and workplace issues with that. So I asked her, one person's violence against another becomes self-inflicted just because they're both the same sex? When my female coworker assaulted me due to her own mental health issues, did that become self-inflicted because I'm also a woman? And she wouldn't answer that. She went on to suicide. So I pointed out the many things that are related to suicide. And after answering the first one with take SSRIs, essentially, and the second one with suicide is self-inflicted, it's not something somebody else does to you, she blocked me to avoid addressing the rest of them. And that's like, this is how women respond to men's pain.
Yep.
And you're blaming women, according to women, you're blaming women if you suggest that bullying a man to death is a thing, just like bullying a woman to death is a thing. Abusing a man to death is a thing, just like abusing a woman to death is a thing. And driving a man to suicide is a thing, just like driving a woman to suicide is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have to deal with the fact that like men will recognize what other men are going through.
Sure.
But women will not.
You know, that I'm glad you pointed that out, because that brings me to another cause. But first, I want to show people that, because I accidentally didn't share the screen. So I'm sorry, guys. I didn't do that right. But here is the CDC suicide statistics, and you can see here suicide deaths, male, female. Okay, this is 2021 is in the gray, 2022 is in the purple. So it's gone up. And you can see it breaking down by race or ethnicity. White, overwhelmingly high. Male, overwhelmingly high. It's a problem. It's like, it's 3/4 of the total number of people committing suicide are white men.
Jeez.
Okay? Middle-aged white men. And so I wanted to show you that. Then I got right here, this is the Salon article, War on Women, the link between white supremacy, men's rights, and anti-abortion politics. This is not even like a shocking article. This is the norm. This is our media. It blames men for everything. In everything. There's a Twitter, okay? You should look up, or an X account. I don't know what you would call it. I think it's called dumb like white ads or dumb white man ads or something like that. And all it is ads that have like a white male in it that's an idiot or useless. Or, you know, like what is in our media, like the propaganda in our media about men, in particular white men, because they're the easiest ones. Like if they did it about a black guy, then you'd have riots. But like they want to though, because it's all men at the end of the day. They're just being careful. So this is normal. This is what men see every day. It's like, it's ubiquitous, right? Here, the Google Trends, this shows what people are searching for. The green is when they're searching for female suicide, even though it's way less. The red and blue at the bottom is white male suicide, or male suicide rather, of which most of those are men, whites I mean. And then the yellow is LGBTQ suicide. And here's the body positivity article I was talking about. Body positivity is for women and not lazy white guys with dad bods. Obviously it's not. That's probably a blessing in disguise though, to be honest. I don't think we want to be encouraging men to be as obese as Lizzo. And then I have this article
not if you want them to live.
Yeah, for the Institute for Policy Studies, called The Problem of Surplus White Men. Too many white men in the world, even though white men are literally a global minority. But of course, these people don't care about that. So those are some of the things that I wanted to share, because I think this is an important issue. And now I hope you understand why I get bent out of shape when people show up out of the blue who know we're here, who know we exist, who know we've been doing this, and not just me, not just Honey Badger Radio, but like people like Paul Elam, people like Warren Farrell, people like, you know, so many others in this space, Janice Fiamengo, that have been doing this work, and they're not mentioning us. They're not talking about this stuff seriously. They're trying to hold they're married to their own ideology about like the way the world should be run, and they don't think it matches up with men's issues, because it doesn't. And there's no I just want to share this with people. So I hope that is something you guys will think about. I got one more super chat and then we'll wrap it up. Mike, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, briefly. We all talk a lot about victim mentality and how unhealthy and harmful it is, and that's true. But there's such a thing as acknowledging the notion of victimhood without turning it into a mentality. It's no coincidence that the demographics who are systematically told they are automatically victims do not commit suicide as much as people who are systematically told they cannot possibly be victims. Which sounds counterintuitive on the surface, but it's not. When people cannot see themselves as victims, no matter what happens to them, they experience this guilt, this boundless sense of guilt, which leads them to hate themselves. Because they feel guilty that bad things happen to everyone but never to them, and then when life doesn't seem to be working out for them, they don't care. They don't even care about themselves, and that leads to suicide. Even though it's only 4 times, men only do it 4 times more than women, and 9 times more than other minorities. Well, that's a small number. It's only 4 times. It's only 9 times. Maybe there's something negligible in there. But no, suicide is an extremely unnatural thing to do. It's even those of us who have contemplated it have never actually attempted it, because going from considering it to attempting it is a huge leap. It requires a massive blockage in your sense of self-esteem to actually reach the point where you're going to take the plunge into the complete unknown, the absolute uncertainty of what the hell happens beyond the grave. And it's why we at Honey Badger Radio try to skate that line, that wafer thin line between victim mentality and just acknowledging that victimhood is a thing. But it's so difficult because people just hate men so much that even voicing the notion that men can be victims, not just an individual man, but men can be victimized by systems. And I know that's a cringy word, but yeah, institutional systems, like the kinds we've been talking about for ages. And it's just a case of if men could realize that it's not their fault, then they wouldn't take that giant leap into the grave. If just it's not your fault. Again, that's a cliche that's appeared in all kinds of contexts. You just got to say it's not your fault. And then when they keep talking, you go, no, it's not your fault. And you keep saying it's not your fault until they start crying. But they don't want to cry either. And I guess crying's not necessarily healthy either, unless you're at the point where you'd rather kill yourself than cry. It's not your fault. It's not necessarily your fault. That's all.
One of the things that I ended up bringing up in that conversation, and this is the comment that, like, the comment before that she answered, and this next comment she blocked. And I pointed out that statistically, boys who have been molested by adults, whether that adult is male or female, are 14 times more likely to commit suicide. Up to 14 times more likely. Is that self-inflicted? I asked that question. She couldn't answer it, so she blocked.
Of course. You know what?
This is where women have that disconnect. There are things that can cause a person to lose a sense of their own value. And one of those things is being told that they didn't deserve to be safe as children, that they didn't have bodily autonomy as children, but the adults around them didn't care enough to make sure they were safe or trusted the wrong people, right?
Yep. So
and who does that? Who fails there?
Right.
Moms.
Yep.
Who's the one at home? Mom. Who's the one decides that who provides care for the kid? Mom. Mom picks the daycare. Mom picks the babysitters. Mom decides where the kid's going to go hang out, which friends' houses, and so on. Too hard for a woman to confront.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because then they have to do the one thing that feminists have conditioned, or our society in general has conditioned women not to do, which is observe the consequences of their actions and those impacts on the greater world. All right.
Nope, it's easier to just say that all male suicide is self-inflicted.
Yep, then you don't have to deal with it. So I did get a super chow, so I'm going to read it because it's kind of a big one. And then I guess we're going to go into the patron show. So I got a big super chow from Anonymous for $12. And they say, my question is, when did we start devaluing the life of children, and what dragged it to this point? Is it the fact that fathers have been circumcised out of homes? You mean, like, well, circumcised and kicked out of their homes? Yes. Is it when we started mutilating boys? I've read that most victims of sex-selective abortions in the West are male. Do most women... Oh, I'm sure that's true. Do most women that get abortions care about the gender? I personally believe it's gender neutral, but I did see an anti-abortion video about a woman pretending to schedule an abortion, and she told the older lady at the desk that she wanted to get an abortion because she was pregnant with a boy. The lady at the desk said that it happens a lot. Recently, I read an article by Medical News Today. In the article, the author seemed concerned that sex-selective abortions could lead to 4.7 million missing female births. I don't really know if it's gender neutral. I want to believe that it's concerned with the upbringing of the child and not misandry. I will add one other thing to this too, is that if you take that and then you also look at the crazy ass, like, you know, danger hair parents, women that are trying to raise their boys as girls or gender neutral, that kind of like, I think that makes the statistic that you're asking about a little less crazy. So they're either going to be killed or they're going to be raised like girls. So
I wonder if the suicide rate is higher with men in America than in other countries as well, because you think about it, you know, circumcision is pretty common here. And I'm not saying that guys kill themselves just because they're cut. But if you think about it, one of the first things that we do, one of the first memorable experiences a boy has after he's been born into the world as an American citizen, you know, like he gets injured badly, painfully, torturously, and no one comforts him through that process. In fact, he's strapped down and a stranger is doing it to him.
Yep.
His mom hands him over to a stranger for that. So I suspect that, you know, we would have higher numbers here just because of that alone.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, I guess we won't know for sure, but I mean, I'd be interested to get the data. Sometimes the thing that's really hard about this kind of data is that it's research that no one wants to do because everyone in academia is feminist. So
there's an article that both of you might have been linked to on Twitter today, called "Why Is Woke America Trying to Ban Circumcision?"
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw it.
I commented on that. I said, if you think it's woke,
infuriating.
Yeah, it's super.
I retweeted it for people to watch because it is really annoying.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to comment on it because
we gotta move into the patron show.
I don't care if they call us woke. I'm still going to talk about this.
It's not. That's just a way to. I'm sorry, but the way they see it is that being woke is simply opposing like religious practices. But I looked into it, and Christianity does not. It's not.
Circumcision is not a
Christian practice. Exactly. It's not a Christian. Yes, it happens in America. It's been normalized, but it's not because of religion. It's because of Kellogg and Jews. That's what it's about. Sorry, that's
because of feminism, which is a religion.
Yes, because of feminism, which is a religion. Yes. But anyway, we're gonna go into the patron show because we gotta end it here. We've gone a little over, and I want to look at either this heels versus babyface thing or 7 damn good reasons to date a single mom. So if you want to join us, you have to become a badger. Go to feedthebadger.com, set up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, where you'll be able to partake, watch the video just like you're watching this one, or if you give it higher levels, you'll be able to be a part of the conversation. So thank you guys so much for coming on today's HBR News Show. If you like this video, please smash like. It really helps us out. Follow us over on Rumble, HB Radio. Join the Rumble Gang. Cool Doge is in the chat. Please, Rumble Gang. And Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about this. Please hit that subscribe and the bell for notifications. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News. And we'll talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.